Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Let's Talk. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that I speak from the land of the Camaragal people. I'd like to acknowledge the elders, past, present, and emerging, and also pay my respects to any Aboriginal people who may be watching this at any point. So, tonight's topic is disillusionment, or the paradoxical nature of disillusionment. And disillusionment is, I would almost consider it, I would consider it to be a stage of spiritual growth. And it is an essential stage, and it's a stage, I would say, that we can go through many times. And so in sort of illustrating this topic, I'll be talking about it from a few different perspectives, certainly including the spiritual perspective. And I refer to disillusionment as a part of the process of spiritual growth, and a very important part. And so I just want to share with you some Zen sayings that I think are just beautiful. So, great doubt results in great enlightenment. Small doubt results in small enlightenment. And no doubt results in no enlightenment. And so, what our Zen friend was saying here, that doubt is vital, a vital prelude to enlightenment. Certainly, I have to say, it was my experience. And so whatever form disillusionment may take, giving up on the world as constructed by the ego, or our ego-constructed world, or giving up on a relationship that I may have idealised or imagined that it was something that it ends up not being, and doesn't seem to fit into my world anymore. Giving up on a professional or life path, or letting go of a belief system that is causing immense cognitive dissonance. It may be a belief system, it may be a value system. This can be huge. It can be an absolutely huge turning point. The disillusionment that comes. And what it does, it leaves a gaping void that I must face. And I may have held on to this belief system or value system or relationship or worldview. Worldview is big. All of these things. And I may have held on to this for a long, long time, all my life, from childhood, into middle age or old age. And I may have denied the discomfort or inner conflict that I've had around it, rather than face the consequences of really coming to grips with that cognitive dissonance. And what cognitive dissonance refers to, very specifically, is when the belief system and values that I have taken on from my society or from a group or a community or a church or whatever it is that I have sort of lived by. I am now in conflict with, and I may have repressed it because it was convenient, or it was just, I didn't want to face the alienation that might be the consequences of giving that up. And so so this leaves, when I do give it up, it leaves a huge void. And I may not give it up because I'm afraid of facing that void. But disillusionment is the best thing that can happen to anyone, because it reveals what does not have. Now, this is according to Dan Millman in The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. What does not have real meaning for me will be revealed. So we humans can easily get caught up in our stories, and we get terribly distracted by our dramas, and in particular our dominant narrative. And this may be something that a person may not consciously think of a whole lot of the time. It will be very present in their consciousness, but they may not be particularly cognitive aware of the effect that it's having on them, this dominant narrative. And because of this dominant narrative, they may be ignoring or not seeing all of the sub-narratives that actually exist that highlight a different aspect of us or of a situation. And so being blinded by one aspect of what is going on stops me seeing the whole configuration. And, you know, it's a huge trap that human beings fall into. But when I stop and step back, stop making assumptions and accept that I don't have the whole picture, I only have a small part of it, I'm much better able to see what is really going on and admit that there is still much for me to understand, or there is much more to unfold before I can have a true picture. And disillusionment brings truth. It is a preamble to me accepting truth and to that which has real value. And frankly, the rest is just dust in the wind. So the 18th century philosopher, Denis Diderot, claimed that skepticism is the first step on the road to philosophy. And while René Descartes, he was a 17th century mathematician and philosopher who has had, he was around at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution and one of the very influential thinkers of the Industrial Revolution. He concurred that to be a true seeker of truth, it is necessary that at least once in your life you doubt, as far as possible, all things. And so for the person who awakens through disillusionment, life is filled with meaning. There is no other way. The losses, the devastating setbacks, the turning points, and the suffering all take on a depth of meaning when I come to realise I am the creator of my life, myself, and my world. Questioning the nature of reality is vital. And all of the social programming that I have experienced as a kid, and then growing up through my adolescence and young adulthood, all of this has shaped and formed and filled the ego-constructed self. All of the ingrained cultural traditions and social rituals that I've learned must be questioned. And the real seeker of truth will do this so that nothing is left untested by doubt or is simply taken as a given, taken for granted. And, you know, the reality is that something that has been in place in my belief system since before I was born, something that, you know, was just a reality within my family unit, within my social world, and everywhere that I interacted in my life, that was just simply taken for granted to be the truth, will be very, very, very powerful. And when that is challenged, it will feel like part of me is being challenged, because I've developed such a depth of identity with that thing. You know, becomes part of my identity. You know, when people believed that the world was flat, that was, you know, huge for people, to the point that, you know, people would not go sailing because they were worried that beyond the horizon they were just going to fall off the world. Anyway, I'm sure you kind of grew up with this at school, as I did. So how else can I separate falsehood from reality? Loving truth is essential, at the cost of everything. If I am willing to search, to doubt, to question, to think critically, and to let go of the convenient explanations, traditions, and beliefs, then I'm on a trajectory of powerful growth. Thinking that I know is a major obstacle and a huge hurdle to overcome, because I must be done with my dreaming of the world, with power plays, with games, with rules, with laws, with dogma, creeds, canons, doctrine. All of these are blocks, as are all the social norms, the rituals, the commonly held beliefs and habituated patterns that I've grown up with. Healthy skepticism is essential in the face of the incredulous and the myths that we have accepted as part of our world, grown up with, and always believed to be true. So philosophers such as Friedrich Nietzsche recognized the importance of emptying the mind of all concepts and beliefs so that the experience of consciousness is freedom, is true freedom. That is true freedom. Do not allow yourselves to be deceived, said Nietzsche. Great minds are skeptical. Herein lies the prelude to genuine mysticism. And this is why learning to think critically is such an important part. It's been quite removed from our education system, but, and that is, you know, for all kinds of ideological reasons, which definitely need to be questioned. But the journey of the mystic is a journey of questioning, and it leaves room. What that does, it leaves room for the divine to enter in. And in this way, the soul may have a direct experience of God. The mystic, for the mystic, there is no intermediary, no third person, no human conduit, no human belief or third party. For they have a direct experience of God and an understanding beyond cognition or thinking, beyond the mind, beyond the intellect, and beyond the senses. It is a deep, inner, and profound and very powerful experience. And mystics through the ages have experienced visions that have revealed to them extraordinary truths. And, you know, for instance, Hildegard von Bingen, she was the German Benedictine abbess. She was a polymath, a writer, a feminist, a composer, a philosopher, a visionary, a mystic, and a medical writer. She was also a botanist. And Hildegard, believe it or not, was born in 1098, and she lived until 1179. She grew up. She went into the abbey very young, as a kid, and her parents realised that she was quite a unique child. She was obviously a genius, really brilliant woman, and a very clever child. And she was having visions, like from the age of about 4. And she was having visions of the future. And when she was older, she was part of the Roman Catholic Church. And she was having visions of the downfall of the church through the priests, the pedophile priests. She was having visions of that. And this is well over, this is over 2,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago. So, yes, quite extraordinary. Hildegard was also extremely outspoken. She had such a clear intellect, and she's getting all this information in her visions on a daily basis. So she was very outspoken and never shy about advising the Pope of the day where the church was going wrong. Interestingly enough, the Pope, she was highly respected by the Pope of the day, and there was more than one in her lifetime, obviously. Whereas a couple of hundred years later, had she been doing this a couple of hundred years later, she would have been burned at the stake during the witch hunts, because the Pope that came and a very misogynist Pope who engaged in the witch hunts would not have tolerated it. But as it was, she was greatly accepted and valued during her time in the church. And Hildegard, her music, interestingly enough, she wrote sacred music. Her music, nobody throughout history since she started writing music has been more popular than she. Her music is still played on the ABC regularly, on ABC radio. The music is played on a very regular basis, and I would say not a week would go by that you will not hear Hildegard's music. Well, it wouldn't be much more than a week. And often, because I do listen to Classic FM, I'm always hearing her music. And so also, you know, another perspective from the Tao, if you don't question things, you will be a very conformist, compliant sheep. If you care about other people's approval, you'll be their prisoner. When you're content to be yourself without competing or comparing, everyone will respect you and who you are. So, do you have the patience to wait until the mud settles and the water is clear? Can you remain still, unmoving, till the right action arises in the heart? And look, we know these things, and yet we need to hear them and sort of relearn them again and again. And that's because, as I was saying last week, you know, we operate in a cyclic fashion. We grow in a cyclic movement. So we cycle around and we learn the same lessons again and again at a higher level. We work on ourselves again and again at a more and more refined level, hopefully. And, you know, one thing that Carlos Castaneda wrote about quite a lot, he said that all paths are the same. They lead nowhere. But if one path has a heart and the other doesn't, the path with heart makes for a joyful journey. As long as you follow it and you are one with it. A path without a heart is never going to be enjoyable. On the other hand, a path with heart is easy. It does not make a warrior work at liking it. Yeah, he's writing about the peaceful warrior too. So the warrior chooses a path with heart, follows it, then rejoices and laughs because he sees that his life will be over too soon. He sees that nothing is more important than anything else. And eventually, he says, I saw that the path of the heart requires a full gesture, a degree of abandon that can be terrifying. And only then is it possible to achieve a sparkling metamorphosis. And so through disillusionment, we must come to our heart. Yeah, how many people take on a career, a profession, or some kind of work or, vocation or whatever, because it offers a good financial reward, but then they don't have a feeling for it, they don't love it, they're doing it literally for the money. What kind of life will that achieve? And so what I would say as a person who has always followed their heart and not worried about making money, you will always be supported. If you do what's meaningful for you, if you do what you love, if you do what is fulfilling for you and brings meaning to your life, really, you cannot go wrong. You know, why are we here? Are we here just to make money, to amass possessions, to achieve this and that? Or are we here to find ourselves and to discover what it's all about, to penetrate the spiritual meaning of our lives and to find the answers to those big picture questions, those existential questions like, why am I really here? You know, what do I really want to do with my life? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And is this what I really want in my life? Is this what really gives my life meaning? Is this helping me to grow and become a better human being? Is it, is this where my heart wants to be? Is this what my heart wants to pursue? Because if it is, my consciousness will expand and grow. And I will experience contentment and happiness. And so disillusionment is a very, very important part of the spiritual path. It's a fiery and powerful gate that we must pass through. Not just once, but we must go through it at least once. It is one of the purest teachers of awakening, of independence, of letting go that we can ever encounter. So the energy of disillusionment can be used correctly or incorrectly. And when used correctly, it is very, very powerful. in just about any movement, regardless of what sort of movement it is, and I don't care what movement it is, there will at some point be wholesale disillusionment. And there is no other way. It can be sudden, swift, and deadly. And that is why on the spiritual path, I need to have a connection directly with the source or the divine or God, particularly if I'm on a religious, spiritual or religious path. Because then when the organisation falters, I have something. I have the real connection that I need. And, you know, I come to this again through disillusionment. Often people will come into a group or a community or some kind of any kind of group, and they connect with that community, with the belief systems, with the values, and with the physical sort of organisation and the systems and customs of that organisation. And what they do is just build a monument to the consciousness of the body. And so we really need the discernment. We need to have very powerful discernment on the spiritual path to see through what is phony and to be able to engage with that which is true. And this does come through disillusionment, and that disillusionment can come again and again and again. But every time I become more discerning and I am pulled more and more and more to the truth, I develop a greater and greater love for the truth. It doesn't matter the cost, because really the only cost of always seeking the truth and looking for the truth is that I lose what is false in my consciousness, in my belief system, in my value system. I don't need the false stuff. It won't help me. All I need is the truth. And so those people who do get sucked in to some kind of monument to body consciousness or to the physical consciousness or the consciousness of a physical organisation, etc., are going to be shocked out of their apathy at some point by disillusionment. It's a given. It's an absolute given. So on the spiritual path, I have to remind myself to be ever ready repeatedly. I have to warn myself, and possibly others, not to follow that path of illusion or to get sucked in to the illusion of what in India they call Maya. And that's the the power of false illusion of the vices. Not to listen to the dictates of our own minds. That can lead us very much astray. And so if we listen to the dictate of our own hearts, we will be much better off, because our heart will not lead us astray. Our heart loves the truth. The mind is hijacked by ego. It is easily deceived, and it deceives itself. So we have to deal with our attachments to ideas, beliefs, convenience, etc. And the person who does not wish to be honest with themselves and to look within, at some point, they're going to be in trouble. So a true spiritual path is not a blanket for covering up people's trash. It is not a hiding place. And often people will use spiritual groups, religious groups, etc., as a hiding place, a place to hide from themselves, to not face themselves, and to not face reality. And so the trash, sooner or later, starts to rot. It begins to stink, and it will leak and leak. And so this is why whatever path we're on, doesn't matter what path that is, we really, really need to know what we're doing and where we're going. And it's because it's the journey, and it's what I put into practice on that journey. I was, in the last couple of weeks, I was in Sydney one Friday evening meeting somebody at a town hall station, and there was a guy there, looked really well-meaning, and he had a microphone, and he was screaming into this microphone, "You're all sinners." And he would have believed that he was just trying to help people and so on and so forth. Nobody was terribly interested, I have to say, in what he, in this screaming down the microphone. I had to wait there, and I was trying to have a conversation with the person I was meeting on the phone, and I couldn't hear them because his speaker was so loud. So it was quite annoying. But screaming your belief system from the rooftops, and thinking that this is the way to get your message across, generally speaking, is not a very good tactic. The person I need to convince about what I'm doing is myself. And so this need to question, to be skeptical, to accept disillusionment as part of my spiritual growth. I can't highlight this enough. You know, it is such an important part of the spiritual journey. And so I now invite you to turn your cameras on. If you've got any questions, please feel free. So, Ranjula, no questions?
No questions, no.
Oh, my God.
It is very interesting. I actually had one, just a comment, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's very good. You said you need to have a path, like a heart, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, a heart. If you have following a path, you need to have your heart in it.
Absolutely.
That's very interesting, yes. And fully involved into it, and not to have any doubts in a way.
Well, it's fine to have doubts, because you should doubt. You should ask all those questions, because otherwise it's just going to be blind, some kind of blind following that you're just being another sheep.
Correct, yes.
In the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so the important thing is to question everything. I have. And I've done it ongoing. I think it's very, very important. Because what can be relevant at one point in your life may not necessarily be relevant 20 years later or 30 years later. And in order to keep something fresh for myself and relevant for myself and really sparkling, then I need to go through this process again and again. Otherwise, it just will become automatic and stale and robotic.
It's a very good point. I still question myself, like I still question the seniors or whoever, like in my workplace, it could be my spiritual life, and I still question them. You know, it could be the simplest answer to it. But it's good, important to ask questions, yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Anybody else like to say anything or comment, ask a question? I know that you're speaking, but you're muted.
Is that better?
Yes, that's a lot better.
Yeah. I'm Debbie. So
hi,
nice
Debbie.
Everything you're talking about really sits well, and you should have doubt, and I understand totally where you're coming from, but I'm at a point of I question a lot in a good way, but with my spiritual journey, just to keep it simple, so for a very long time it was God, and then it was Dharma, and then it went back to God, and then it's been Dharma for a very long time. And there is doubt, and I do follow my heart, but I'm feeling, where do you go when, if I've heard you right, my heart will lead me to growth? I'm feeling a bit stuck. I know me, I love me, I don't need acceptance from anybody. I've done all the things of not judging and compassion, and I'm there and I do that, but where I'm wanting more, and I hear what you're saying, to be very careful. I don't want to be a sheep, but I also feel a bit like stuck in my growth. I'm very aware of what I listen to and what I hear, but are you saying that to follow my heart, and that will lead me to where I'm going.
Yes, if whatever path you're on, Debbie, whatever that may be, it doesn't matter what it is, whatever it is.
No. Yeah.
It is normal, and, well, I shouldn't perhaps necessarily say normal, but it is a really positive if at various points along the way you have cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
And, I did explain that, but, you may have been on a path for 40 years and it's been relevant for you. You've gotten a lot of comfort out of it, or good feelings, or it's felt, good. But then a part of you starts questioning and starts to wake up. And so there is a discomfort. It can be initially a bit subconscious, an uncomfortable feeling, which over time you will start to examine. I'm not convinced that really fits for me now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And if I don't listen to that voice of my intuition, the cognitive dissonance will grow and I will feel stuck, because it means that maybe I'm just robotically or automatically accepting something that actually isn't right for me, or that is holding me back in my growth. Maybe it was real for me 20 years ago, but it's not now. I need more. I need to go deeper, and I need to do a lot more questioning. And, because over time, when we are on the spiritual path, different parts of us keep waking up that have been asleep.
Yeah.
And so I want more from myself. I want more from my path. And it may be that this path no longer fits for me, and I need to start looking at another path. I think I agree with the Dalai Lama, and that sort of Buddhist approach, that it's good to stay with one thing, because so that you can face yourself and work on yourself. And so there are people who will just, go here and go to this group and this group, looking for another high, but never wanting to face themselves. And they're just looking for a place to escape.
Yeah.
They're looking for a blanket to hide under. They want to hide from the world and hide from themselves. And so they will never grow.
No.
And so it seems to me that, with your Dharma, and it sounds like you've followed a sort of more Buddhist path. Is that correct?
Yeah. So for me, maybe 18 to 27, it was all Buddhism. And then I got lost, as you said. I was under the umbrella to be looked after. And in the last years, I've studied different Dharma, like Tibetan, Kadampa, and what you said earlier really resonated with me. Things didn't feel right in my heart, and pushing it. And in one of them, you put others before yourself, and that never sat with me. And then, but all of Dharma is in my heart, but I'm growing away from, like, to put a name on it, Kadampa, Tibetan, but I'm feeling, I know I'm growing, but I want to keep growing.
Yes.
And as yeah, I don't want under, you know, Catholic Church of England, you know, or Tibetan Kadampa, but I'm feeling a little bit anxious in it because I'm being still. So I've studied a lot and now things don't feel right and I've taken steps back. But that's been a bit scary in the way. You're right. I have let a lot of that go because it wasn't right in my heart, but I'm a little bit, I want to keep growing lots, but at the moment I'm being still to what resonates in my heart, but I'm not finding that answer yet. But I think I'm hearing that's okay to be where I'm at.
And, you know, it may require for you to just to be still and wait.
Yeah. Thank you. I needed to hear that. Yeah.
And because often in that stillness and in that waiting, what is coming up from the subconscious part of me is some stuff I actually don't want to face.
Okay. Yeah.
And so then I can start thinking, oh, is this what I should be doing? Is this right? Just sit with the discomfort.
Yeah, okay.
I would say always sit with the discomfort, take it in your meditation, just sit with the discomfort and allow that discomfort to speak to you intuitively. It will speak to you through your emotions. And very often there are some uncomfortable, repressed emotions down there that the ego doesn't want to let me feel. And it's all going on subconsciously. I'm not even conscious of it. But this is how the ego works, because the ego doesn't want me to grow spiritually. And so at these times, I think it's important. It's never more important to sit still, meditate, and wait. It's like Siddhartha said, you know, I can be still, I can fast, and I can wait.
Okay. Yeah.
And so it's that inculcation of patience and non-doing and acceptance of that acceptance. And whatever is there, it will come up if I don't distract myself from it. But when there's desire, Buddha's beautiful teaching of, you know, desire and attachment, where there's desire and attachment, that's the ego's way of distracting me from what needs to come up in me. And that will take me into suffering. It will always take me into suffering, because when I turn away from my own work, I will just cause myself more suffering. The suffering that I'm trying to avoid will end up causing me more suffering.
Yeah, I needed to hear that tonight, so I'm at the right place at the right time. So thank you.
That's good.
Yeah. And I like the word suffering. I know exactly what you're talking about, but it's confirmation to me just to hear you say that, and that's exactly where I'm at. And it was maybe the silence with a lot of attachment that I'm dealing with, but as you just said, it's the suffering that comes with the attachment and the word you use to keep busy has been hard, because it's coming up, and it's like on your spiritual growth, things, as you said earlier, how things change all the time in your growth, and that's a hard one for anyone with the attachment and desire with suffering, and that's where I'm at the moment. And as you said, like when we haven't got the blanket, there's no blanket over me now, and me alone and my heart, and that can make you feel a bit
vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But that's
Yes.
okay, yeah.
That's good, because in our spiritual growth requires us to allow that vulnerability to emerge and be exposed, and to trust, because we have to let go of our ego defenses and stop living according to ego defenses and start living according to our truth, to our spiritual truth, and to the sanskars, or
Yes.
do you call them sankaras or something in Buddhism? And let those original true sanskaras emerge. And the only way that can happen is when we allow the ego to dissolve.
No,
and
thank you so.
It is a continual process on this path.
That's exactly what I needed to hear. So thank you.
Oh, that's good. That's great, Debbie. Thanks for asking. Interesting conversation there. Interesting discussion.
Tonight was so good. Thank you again.
Very, very welcome. So if nobody else has anything they want to say, here comes somebody.
Hey, Jude. Manisha here.
Hey, Manisha.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you. I really enjoyed this session. Thanks a lot.
Oh, great.
I have a question, since you talked about, questioning.
Good.
So for me, think that, so I am leaning heavily towards one spiritual philosophy. Okay. And my mother has been following this spiritual philosophy for 2 decades now. Now, there are within the spiritual philosophy, I accept around 80% of it, and I question on 20%. I believe that certain things just don't sit well with me. So given that on one hand, I have seen how this spiritual philosophy has improved my mother's life and given her, and so she's a living example. But there are certain aspects of it which I can't digest it yet.
No.
Okay. So I know that it is good for me somewhere, because I've seen the outcome of how people are when they accept it fully. How do you handle that rejection? And it could be the ego that's rejecting it, like you said. How do you overcome that 20% to really truly believe? Or do you think that it's just not for me?
Well, I guess what I would say is that to have 100% complete acceptance from the word go is probably phony.
Okay.
Because we all have ego, all of us. And the ego rejects what it doesn't like, what is inconvenient. And I have to say, when I engaged with my spiritual path, it was at a time in my life that was so inconvenient and was sort of inviting me to do things that I did not want to do. The timing couldn't have been worse.
Okay.
And, there were situations in my life that it meant in order to go that way, I couldn't go that way. And so all that went on for a couple of years. well, for a few years actually.
Oh.
And I'll be honest with you, I found it really confronting and challenging. And I didn't just accept anything. I mean, I questioned, I argued, I went really, really deeply into things and talked to people, and there was no way I could have just accepted, you know. But that's what I can say almost 40 years later is that it couldn't be any other way for me. It couldn't. And so you say, 20% you don't accept. For me, probably there was 20% I accepted and 80% I didn't. And and at one point, there was 100% that I didn't accept. The only thing I had to hold that was holding me was an experience that I was having in meditation. But that experience was so powerful, and it became more and more and more powerful over time. And it was that experience ultimately that caused me to question my egoic stuff. And it won. I have to say, over time, it won. And it was because my heart was speaking to me over time, my heart was speaking to me very, very loudly. And it was like being torn apart at times. A lot of the time I felt completely torn apart. And that's what the ego does. The soul's saying, I want to go that way. And the ego's saying, no, I want to go that way.
Yeah.
And it is really challenging and really hard. But what I would say is that what I went through, it gave me so much strength and so much resilience long term to do, to stay on the path and to do what I'm doing and to question. Yes, I've been disillusioned on many occasions, and I know it's probably not over yet. But there's the wisdom that comes from that process. See, I think that being on a spiritual path is both, in one sense, it's very easy, and in another sense, it is so difficult if I'm really doing it. Because I have to let all these questions arise in me. I have to listen to those voices, and I have to respect those voices and be very challenged and very confronted by those voices. And either, over time, my heart will lead me in the right direction, or the ego will say, look, this is just too hard, I'm giving up. I'm going to do this. But then it's very hard. That's very hard too. So that's why I think talking to people and having these discussions, like I've just had with Debbie, now I'm having with you, I think they're terribly important, because I need to follow a path. If I'm going to follow a path, my heart has to be in it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whatever that path is, my heart has to be in it. If my heart's not in it, it's not going to make me happy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get the fulfillment. I'm not going to get, the growth that I really want. if my
Yes.
heart's not in it. I have to trust my heart and let my heart lead the way.
And the heart voice will only come up when there's silence and there's stillness, isn't it? Otherwise, the mind will just wander and just take you places and tell you stories.
Yeah, tell you stories and confuse you.
Oh, yes.
And what I would say to anyone who says to me, I'm just so confused. And I say, well, if you weren't confused, what would you be feeling? Because the definition of confusion is when my feeling interferes with my thinking. Because, the mind says the world is this way and I am like this and my life is like this and so on and so forth. It's got an answer to everything.
Yeah.
But that may have nothing to do with my heart.
True.
And why do people have midlife crises and crises during their lives and so on and so forth? It's because they're not following their heart. And they will, at certain times, they will have a life crisis. Where they're forced to reevaluate.
Yeah.
So I'm using tonight the word disillusionment because I think it's just such a great word, such a great description of what we go through. But crisis is another really good description as well. And that I have to struggle with these things. That I find really positive and necessary. On a true spiritual path, I need to go through this and I need to work it out for myself, because what might be right for you might not be right for me. And what might be right for the masses might be absolutely wrong for me. I know that I am not a mainstream thinker. I don't see myself as part of the mainstream, social mainstream. I know I think very differently. And I know that, I've had to find my own way. And at times that has been a real struggle and very, very challenging. But that's good. See, I see all that as really good. And to embrace those challenges and to really, go to the war with yourself, with your true self. That's what's important. It's the journey that's important. It's not the end goal. It's how we do the journey.
It's a lot of work.
Look,
really
it is. It is. But I guess I've accepted from many, many years ago that this is the only path that I want to take. And, over time, it becomes really joyful. And I won't say that at the beginning it wasn't that, because you do go through this honeymoon period for a couple of years,
Yep.
and then after a couple of years you start to get really challenged, and you have to get really real, really real, because we're losing everything in us that's false. Anything in our values, in our core beliefs, in our understanding about the world, our worldview, our understanding of who we are, all that egoic stuff, everything that's false has to go. Because while I'm dependent on something that's false, that can be taken away any tick of the clock.
Yeah.
And if I'm living a false life, it won't make me happy. It won't take me where I really want to go.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jude.
So, as William Shakespeare said, to thine own self be true. What's
Love
right
that.
for your mum and what's
Yeah.
right for you may not be, the same thing.
Yeah.
But then again, it might. You just have to go through your journey, and she goes through hers. You have to go through yours.
Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you, Jude.
Okay. Thanks, Manisha. Thanks for asking the question. Great question. Okay. Now, let us finish with a couple of minutes of meditation. So I will just speak a few words to get us into meditation, and then we will have some silence, because silence is golden. So I draw my awareness within, removing it from the outside world, from the physical environment. And I turn completely within. Moving into the stillness, into the quiet place inside, into that beautiful, safe place. I move into that place and I fill myself with truth. And I experience the light of truth. And of that source of energy, connecting with me in the silence and in the stillness, filling me with love. I stay quietly in connection with that one. Om Shanti.